Welcome to an uplifting moment. Our theme, worship in the hills. I was taking my usual morning walk in the hills above our house in Mexico, where we live part of the year to be near our missionary daughter and her family. This morning was different. I heard singing in the hills. I often hear music being blared from speakers. People tend to feel that if they like the music, so will everyone else within a couple of miles. This was different. This was live music, people singing. Of course, it was in Spanish, but it wasn't long before I realized it wasn't secular Mexican music, but worship music being sung to God. When I reached the top of a hill, I scanned the terrain for the source. Sure enough, there in the distance, I saw a small adobe house and could just make out maybe a dozen people gathered. I happened to have my video camera with me to record interesting natural events. This was a supernatural event, so I zoomed in with the long lens to get a better view, recording as I zoomed. Yes, they were gathered in an informal circle, standing, singing, worshiping. A church with no walls, their voices drifting my way, their voices drifting upward to heaven. As I turned to continue my trek back home, I reflected on how you can worship God anywhere, even beside a rustic adobe house in the hills of rural Mexico. You don't need arched cathedral ceilings with tall stained glass windows in order to properly worship, nor do you need megawatt amplifiers synchronized with multicolored lights aiming their beams back and forth across a worship platform to inspire worship. You just need people, whether it be a filled megachurch in a major city or a dozen or less people gathered by an adobe cottage in the hills. You just need people with a heart for connecting with God. You can even worship God alone, though it's not meant to be a substitute for getting together with others for worship. Worship is allowing yourself to be impressed with God, attributing ultimate worth to Him, reflecting on how great He is, expressing a yearning for His embrace more than whatever else we embrace in life. It's opening the portal between God and His heaven and us and our heart. That's worship. We don't need to be any place in particular for this to happen. That's what the folks across the valley in rural Mexico unknowingly reminded me. Your heart just needs to be in the right place. Jesus said, as recorded in John chapter 4, verse 24, God is spirit, and His worshipers must worship in the spirit and in truth. Thank you for joining me for this, an uplifting moment.